3 bone-chilling true horror stories from summer vacations that haunt you forever. The sun blazed down on the sleepy town of Cedar Hollow, where the whisper of summer promised endless fun. But behind that veil of warmth lurked secrets that were far from the idyllic memories people wished to create. It was here that 3 chilling tales unfolded, stories so uncanny and twisted that they would claw into the very marrow of your bones, leaving you breathless and wide-eyed in disbelief. What lies beneath the surface? Jessica, a local teenager, couldn't shake the feeling that something was stalking her through the pine trees. Every evening, as dusk poured its shadows across the ground, she heard a low, guttural growl that sent shivers racing down her spine. She brushed it off, convincing herself it was just her imagination. But the townsfolk whispered of a long-lost hunter, a lonesome spirit cursed to roam these woods forever. Many claimed to see his flickering lantern light at the edge of the forest, guiding lost souls deeper into darkness. The thrill of exploration clashed with the instinct to flee, but curiosity always won. Over at Lake Serenity, a family picnic took a terrifying turn. It was supposed to be a day of laughter and cannonballs, but instead, it became a nightmare. Just as they dove into the cool waters, a scream pierced the air. Sarah, the youngest, vanished beneath the waves, leaving only ripples of dread and despair. In that very lake, legends told of a creature that lured children to a watery grave with enchanting melodies. Parents whispered of a hidden underwater realm where spirits of the lost cried for revenge. Was Sarah the next victim of this haunting legend? And what would they do if she never returned? Then, there was the old Cedar Hollow Inn, a place that was once the heart of community gatherings but now sat dark and forgotten. People claimed they could hear the laughter of a party long past. But they also spoke of a woman in white who wandered the halls, her eyes hollow, eternally seeking her lost love. Those who dared to spend a night felt the oppressive weight of sorrow roll over their chests, as if the very walls held in their grasp the weight of heartache. Some left before dawn, trembling, while others swore they could see her standing at their bedside, her lips moving as if whispering secrets from another time. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows through the trees, the air grew thick with unexplainable tension. Secrets buried beneath the calm facade of Cedar Hollow churned restlessly, waiting for the right moment to surface. Who or what was lying in wait just beyond the edge of reason? What darkness would the long-forgotten tales expose next? As the night wrapped Cedar Hollow in its chilly embrace, the world transformed. The comforting sounds of chirping crickets faded, replaced by a menacing silence that seemed to amplify every rustle of leaves. Jessica wandered deeper into the woods, the flickering lights from her phone casting eerie shadows. Each step brought her closer to the legends she had always heard, the stories that had been whispered in the dark. Then, there it was again, a growl. This one was louder, more distinct. It wasn't in her imagination. Heart racing, she froze. The thud of her heartbeat drowned out the forest's quiet, and she strained her ears, hoping it would just go away. But the growl came again, low and rumbling. It was close, too close. Meanwhile, the panic-stricken family at Lake Serenity was forming search parties. Desperation clung to them like the sweat on their brows. Parents dared to call Sarah's name, voices shaky with fear. They knew time was running out. It was said that once the lake claimed a child, they would never be freed. Huddles of terrified adults exchanged distressed looks, while children stood silent, wide-eyed. The soft lapping of the water taunted them, murmuring promises of horrors lurking beneath the surface. A few brave souls dived into the murky depths, searching for any sign of the young girl. But whispers spread through the gathering crowd. We shouldn't be here. The songs they call us. It was a chilling echo of the legend, a reminder that something waited below, wagging its twisted fingers, eager for more. Not too far away, the Cedar Hollow Inn loomed against the night sky like a haunted guardian of old tragedies. In the flickering light of a distant street lamp, a couple approached, trepidation etched on their faces. They had heard of the legendary woman in white, and after some drinks at the local bar, they considered a night of ghostly thrills. Laughter bubbled up as they joked nervously, but inside, their hearts thumped louder with uncertainty. As soon as they entered, an unbearable heaviness pressed down, dimming their playful spirits. The hallways were chilly, the air thick with melancholy. Each corner held whispers, ancient but clear. They could almost hear her sobs as the shadows twisted around them, choking any light that dared to enter. Then, without warning, the atmosphere shifted. A door creaked open down the hall, drawing their gaze like an iron magnet. The flickering light danced, revealing a figure vaguely familiar, wearing the silhouette of sorrow. The woman in white glided past them, ethereal and haunting. Her eyes, vacant yet pleading, brimming with longing, turned towards something unseen. A scream lodged in their throats as they stumbled back in the woods. Jessica's breath hitched as the growl erupted again, this time, closer still. Panic surged through her, pushing her to turn and run. Twigs snapped beneath her feet, the darkness closing in, swirling like smoke. She could feel something right behind her, hot breath against her neck. Her legs screamed for escape, but dread urged her to glance back. Just a moment at Lake Serenity, the parents' frantic shouts blended into despair as the sun dipped further. The last glimmers of light faded, swallowed by looming clouds, and the water began to swell ominously. A haunting tune drifted through the air, sweet and sinister, wrapping around them like a noose. "What is happening?" someone murmured, as children began to sway unerringly, entranced by the melody. Would they be the next to be led into chilling depths? As these threads of terror unraveled, Cedar Hollow was on the cusp of unveiling its darkest secrets. Each story wove closer together, creating a web of horror and heartache. What would happen next? Would they confront the spirits lurking in the shadows, or would they become a part of the haunting legends forever? And just as the first scream echoed through the night, another chill crept into the air. What awaited in the dark heart of Cedar Hollow? Jessica's heart thundered in her chest as she took off running, the forest transforming into a distorted nightmare. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the very ground below was trying to pull her down, to ensnare her in its merciless embrace. The growl echoed again, this time a deep and rumbling warning that sent chills racing down her spine. She could almost see the glowing eyes that stalked her, waiting for her to falter. "Keep moving," she whispered through clenched teeth, the words both a mantra and a desperate plea. Branches scraped against her skin like claws as she dashed through the underbrush, scrambling for any shred of safety. Every rustle and creak intensified her fear, merging with the haunting melody that wrapped around her mind like a strangling vine. At Lake Serenity, the parents could do nothing but watch in horror as the water churned. The once calm surface transformed into a whirlpool of shadows and whispers. Children started to sway eerily, entranced by the haunting song that echoed off the trees. Fear tightened their grips on the hands of their loved ones, barely holding on as an unseen force pulled them closer to the lake's edge. Above the chaos, Sarah's mother screamed into the darkness, "Help! Where are you, Sarah?" Her voice shattered the night, mixing with the children's eerie whispers. The desperation felt tangible, gripping the hearts of everyone gathered. A man rushed into the water, driven by raw emotion. With each stroke, the lake tugged at him, trying to draw him down into its icy depths. He felt the pull intensifying, desperate to adhere to the curse of Cedar Hollow. He only half grasped how many had drowned in this very spot, drawn by the same siren call that now held him captive. Just as a flicker of movement caught his eye, a figure broke the surface, a small hand grasping wildly at nothing. "I see her!" he shouted, thrusting himself deeper into the freezing water. People gasped, shock rippling through the crowd at this glimmer of hope amidst despair, but at the Cedar Hollow Inn, the couple was far from salvation. The woman in white lingered at the edge of their consciousness, a specter drifting through memories of pain and loss. The air thickened as they exchanged terrified glances. What was that? He whispered, fear eating away at his bravado. Suddenly, the lights flickered again. Clarity pierced the veil of shadows as they caught sight of writing on the wall, a chilling message scrawled in what looked like blood, "You're not alone." Panic struck hard, bleeding through their limbs like ice. They moved toward the exit, only to find the door slammed shut, as if the inn itself had evolved into a malicious entity hungry for their souls. Back in the woods, Jessica tripped, the ground rising to meet her with an unforgiving thud. She turned, breathless, just as the growl blossomed into a haunting laughter, an echo of promises made long ago. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were toying with her, playing a deadly game. As she staggered to her feet, the chase resumed, shadows closing in on her. In that crushing moment, she made a vow. She wouldn't become just another tale to haunt Cedar Hollow. But the night, dark and unyielding, had plans of its own. The haunting melody intensified, roots of despair wrapping tighter around the hearts on the shore. As dread filled every crevice of the night, the figures, both spectral and solid, were pulled closer together. With a sudden jolt of recognition, Jessica noticed something shimmered ahead. Could it be a way out? Or would the forces of Cedar Hollow claim her too, forever entangled in its web of sorrow? The fear was overwhelming, pulsating like a living thing, and every instinct within her screamed to run. But what awaited Jessica in the ensuing darkness, tethered between realms? The final confrontation loomed, and the shadows were hungry. Jessica stumbled toward the glimmering light, each labored breath mingling with the scent of damp earth and decay. The shadows behind her twisted in the night, whispering her name in a chorus of mockery. "You can't escape," they seemed to say, a cruel reminder of the legends that clung to Cedar Hollow. As she drew closer, the source of the glow became clearer, an old, chipped lantern swinging gently from a branch, illuminating a narrow path that twisted away from the oppressive darkness. With no time to hesitate, she clutched the lantern, its warm light pushing back the shadows in a fragile bubble of safety. The glow beckoned her deeper into the woods, away from the terrifying symphony of growls and laughter, but was it truly safe? A surge of conflict roiled in her gut. The light felt both inviting and menacing, like a moth drawn to a flame. She could picture the spirits of the forest gathering just beyond the reach of the lantern's glow, waiting for her to step out of its embrace. "Keep moving," she muttered again, emboldened by the flickering beacon of hope, and stepped onto the path. The ground felt different beneath her feet, a sensation of rebellion against the heavy pull that had pursued her. Each step was fueled by fear, yet layered with stubborn determination. Above, the moon hung like a sickle, its pale light cutting through the canopy. Jessica couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, the sensation prickling at the back of her neck. She turned sharply, expecting to see a looming figure, but nothing was there, just trees, twisted and gnarled, their boughs like skeletal fingers scratching at the sky. Suddenly, the haunting melody crept back into her ears, weaving through the trees, softer now but no less sinister. It wrapped around her like a caress, seductive and cold. The lyrics danced on the edges of her mind, fragments that felt like ancient warnings. "They're coming for you, they want you." Jessica shook her head fiercely, brushing away the whispers that threatened to invade her thoughts. She could see other flickers in the distance now, lights shimmering through the timber, each one a possible escape or an illusion. But which to trust? The lantern just felt like a cruel ruse now, pulling her deeper into danger. Just as doubt began to settle over her like a shroud, she spotted movement, a small figure darting between the trees, fleeting yet undeniably real. "Hey!" she shouted, her voice echoing back at her, swallowed by the darkness. "Wait! Help!" The figure paused, cloaked in shadows, yet she could see the outline of a girl, her eyes wide and glimmering. A heartbeat raced between them, heavy with shared terror. The girl turned suddenly, beckoning Jessica with a more urgent plea. "This way! Quick!" Jessica hesitated, heart pounding as the growl rolled through the woods again, this time closer. She felt the dark tendrils of panic urging her to flee, but the girl's desperate gaze anchored her, a lifeline in the desperate night. Following the shadowed figure, fear gave way to an instinctual trust, a gut feeling that maybe this was her chance. But as they ran, the laughter crescendoed behind them. Branches whipped past her face, raking her skin, but Jessica pushed through the pain. She had to keep up. Had to survive. Suddenly, the girl stopped and pointed to a clearing ahead. It unraveled like a dangerous promise. The shadows loomed ominously behind them, the laughter growing closer, transforming into a menacing chorus. "Go!" the girl urged, her voice cracking with urgency. As Jessica stepped into the clearing, dread loomed over her like a storm cloud. What lay ahead? Friend or foe? The darkness encircled them, breathing down their necks. The pull of Cedar Hollow was still inescapable. The shadows still wanted their due. "Where are we going?" Jessica demanded, her voice desperate. The girl turned, her eyes glistening with tears and fear. "You'll find out, but we might not make it if you don't trust me." With a swallow deep enough to shake her resolve, Jessica took a step forward, uncertain but willing to test the consequences. The next moment would reveal whether this escape was salvation or the ultimate trap laid by Cedar Hollow. As they sprinted into the enigmatic light, Jessica couldn't shake the question that echoed in her mind: was there truly hope, or were they both just pawns in a greater game? The clearing opened wide, a haunting expanse that felt like a gaping maw welcoming them into its depths. Moonlight pooled on the ground, casting flickering shadows through the trees that surrounded them. The air grew thick with tension as Jessica glanced back, her heart racing. The shadows seemed to close in, tightening around the edges of the clearing like the jaws of a trap. "Quick! Over here!" the girl urged again, pulling Jessica by the arm. Her grip was surprisingly strong, yet the fear in her eyes dug into Jessica's mind, spurring her onward. They dove into the thicket, the underbrush soundlessly whispering with their passage. Just as they emerged deeper into the canopy, the shifting shadows seemed to throb, chasing them, twisting into monstrous forms that danced on the cusp of their peripheral vision. "Why are they after us?" Jessica gasped, scrambling to keep up. The girl looked back, terror etched on her face, but said nothing. Instead, she moved faster, leading them along a narrow path that wound through dense branches and knotted roots. The ground beneath became a puddled mess of mud and fallen leaves, slick with each step. Jessica could feel her body straining, a knot of fatigue forming in her chest, but she pushed through. The growling laughter echoed behind, relentless, like a dark twisted symphony composed for their suffering. Suddenly, they burst into another clearing, this one larger, bathed in moonlight, revealing a line of ancient stones jutting from the earth, half covered with moss. Jessica skidded to a stop, catching her breath as the girl surveyed their surroundings. The circle of whispers, she breathed, eyes wide with a fear that felt almost palpable. "What?" Jessica panted, glancing around. They were trapped, she could feel it in her bones. The shadows outside the trees shifted ominously, almost hungrily, and the eerie laughter grew louder, wrapping around the clearing as if daring them to move. "This is where they draw strength, where the darkness feeds," the girl explained, barely above a whisper. "We need to stay close to the stones. They can protect us if we." A low growl interrupted her, cutting through the dense atmosphere like a knife. Jessica spun around, and her heart dropped. Figures moved in the dark, emerging like specters from the trees, shapes twisted and malformed, eyes glowing like hot coals in the night. "Run!" the girl screamed, shaking Jessica from her shock. They dashed toward the stones, but Jessica could feel the shadows clawing at her, the darkness eager to pull her back into its depths. Just as they reached the stones, a deafening roar erupted from behind them, the laughter transforming into a cacophony of jeers that sent shivers racing down her spine. "What do we do?" Jessica cried, her hands shaking. She pressed against the cold, damp stone, the weight of despair crushing her anew. "Trust the stones," the girl shouted desperately. "They'll give us power. Focus on what you desire most, follow your heart." Jessica's mind raced. Trust. Hope. But as she steadied herself, her thoughts swirled back to the shadows, creeping closer, their whispers wrapping around her brain like a poison. The girl closed her eyes and began to chant softly, words laced with desperation, as if invoking something hidden deep within. Jessica hesitated, fear battling against the hope that flickered weakly in her chest. What if they were wrong? What if this was just a cruel distraction? Suddenly, one of the dark figures lunged from the trees, a monstrous entity with jagged teeth and eyes filled with betrayal. Jessica's breath caught in her throat. Before she could react, the girl pressed a hand to the stone and the air trembled. A burst of light shot through the clearing, momentarily blinding them. Jessica squinted into the brilliance, heart pounding, unsure if they had crossed a threshold of safety or merely awakened something far worse. As the light enveloped the clearing, the shadows froze in their advance, the laughter escalating into a wicked frenzy. Now. Focus. The girl's voice broke through, her hand still against the stone. Jessica felt the energy pulling at her, a whisper of power curling through the air, but behind their confidence lay the truth: whatever lay beyond the stone had been awakened. They might have choked the darkness momentarily, but the pull of Cedar Hollow wasn't just an angry wind, it was a tide rising. What happened next could change everything. Trust in the light. The girl shouted, but the question loomed heavy in the air. Had they unleashed a darker force they could never contain? Would the circle protect them, or was this just the beginning of their nightmare? A deafening crack split the night, reverberating through the clearing as the light flickered wildly, illuminating the frantic, twisting shadows. The dark figures recoiled momentarily, hissing curses and distorted whispers that sliced through the air, chilling Jessica to her core. She squeezed her eyes shut, the glow blinding, but she could feel the pulse of fear thumping in her chest. Open your eyes. Feel it. Let it in. The girl urged, her voice barely piercing the cacophony of chaos and shadow. With a shudder, Jessica forced her eyes open, battling the panic that threatened to take her. But as the light emanated from the stones, it felt like a high tide rushing to swallow everything. Was it power or something far more sinister? Time blurred. The shadows danced, their claws stretching hungrily toward them, whispering curses that sent spikes of ice along Jessica's spine. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was caught in a web spun from nightmares. Jessica. The girl's voice broke through again, snapping her back. Concentrate on what you want to protect. Jessica's heart raced as she thought of her family, the warmth of their laughter, their safety. But just as clarity struck, a shadow lunged, darting forward with a speed that stole her breath. It grabbed the girl, wrapping long, sinewy fingers around her waist and tugging her into the depths of the night. No! Jessica screamed, reaching out, her voice raw. The girl's eyes widened with a mix of determination and terror, but before she could say anything, the shadows consumed her with a sickening laugh. For a moment, Jessica felt paralyzed, her body frozen in horror. The light pulsated around her, blinding yet vibrant, shifting in hue as it fought against the encroaching darkness. Focus! Came the girl's distant voice from beyond, and Jessica forced herself to remember. She pressed her hands against the stone, feeling its ancient energy vibrate beneath her palms, the rough surface cool and real against her fear-drenched skin. The shadows writhed, still fighting, trying to pull her back, and she cried out, "You won't take us. I will protect her." With that declaration, a powerful wave surged through her, igniting something fierce and primal. The stones glowed brighter, sending beams of light slicing through the fog of darkness. She thought of their bond, their shared laughter, storms they'd weathered together, the secrets locked away like treasures. As soon as the light erupted, the shadows screeched, curling back, but it wasn't enough. Their foul tendrils clawed for her, pulling her toward an abyss hanging just beyond the clearing. In a desperate move, she concentrated harder. With a cry she barely recognized as her own, she didn't just want to protect the girl, she wanted to release everything she held dear. The light expanded, blinding, wrapping around like a shield. Jessica felt the surge pulse through her veins, consuming her fears, transforming each pulse into strength. The shadows twisted, roaring in what sounded like anger as the light shot forth, blasting them back. She could see grotesque shapes unraveling, losing form as the light swept through the clearing, clearing a path toward the girl, still caught in the grip of darkness. Jessica. The call was strong, and for just a split second, the girl's face shimmered in the light, hope mingling in her terror. But before Jessica could reach out again, a shadow surged forward, clawing through the light, integrating itself with the very energy she had conjured. The amalgamation caused a riptide, and she felt the ground beneath her feet tremble violently. "No!" she screamed. It was as if the wicked laughter turned to a howl, and the dark mass surged forth to engulf her entirely. Just when she thought she couldn't hold on any longer, a second whiplash of light shot from the stones, radiating with fierce intensity. The shadows shrieked one final time, and they dissipated into wisps of darkness, swirling away into obscurity. Jessica gasped, grounding herself against the stone, heart hammering. And then silence fell, a deep, almost oppressive stillness that pressed against her ears. Where was the girl? Had she been taken? Could it be over? The question hung heavy in the air, an uncertain whisper in the night, yet deep within the forest, a low hum persisted, like the breathing of some monstrous beast still stirring in the shadows. Whatever they had disrupted hadn't gone completely quiet. Jessica gripped the stone harder, feeling its pulse beneath her fingers, a reminder that they weren't safe yet. A shiver splintered down her back as the trees around began to rustle once more, dark whispers moving through the leaves like echoes of something that wouldn't stay buried, what could still be lurking in the depths of Cedar Hollow. As she peered into the dark, a chill crept up her spine. The very woods felt alive, pulsating with anticipation. "We're not done yet," she muttered, determination fighting against her dread. But what awaited them still lingered, hidden in the whispers of the trees. Would they be able to escape this nightmare? Or was it just the beginning? The air felt thick, almost electric, as the silence wrapped around Jessica like a suffocating blanket. Her heart pounded as she strained to listen. The murmurings of the forest swirled around her, almost conspiratorial, sending goosebumps racing across her skin. Just moments ago, she had felt the shattering power of light against the envelope of darkness, yet now she was profoundly alone. "Hello." Her voice was small, echoing into the undefined dark. There was no answer, only the rustle of branches above her, like skeletal fingers scratching against the night sky. Jessica's eyes darted around the clearing, looking for any sign of the girl. Had she been swallowed whole, lost in the void? A lump formed in her throat, the kind that came from fear mixing with desperate determination. She couldn't let despair take root. The girl had fought against the shadows, and now it was on Jessica to do the same. Summoning courage from deep within, she took a step forward, aware of the stones flickering behind her as if urging her onward. With a frantic heart, she started calling out for her friend, "Where are you?" The words echoed into the darkness, but the only reply was a chilling wind sending leaves swirling, whispering secrets she wasn't meant to know. Then, out of the shadows, something shifted. Her breath hitched when she caught sight of a figure. It was obscured, cloaked in darkness, but the outline was unmistakable. "No, it can't be," she whispered, dread pooling in her stomach. "Help me!" The muffled voice was faint, broken like glass. It shivered through the darkness, threading despair through her chest. She knew that voice. "Where are you?" Jessica yelled back, panic clawing at her throat. "Jessica," the voice trembled in reply. "You have to come closer." Pleased with every fiber in her being urging her to turn and run, Jessica found the courage to take a shaky step as the shadows flickered around her. The figure began to solidify, revealing familiar features, yet they were distorted, the edges melted like wax. "Stay back!" Jessica shouted, feeling her instincts flare. But the figure reached out, its hand was at the girl's. Shimmering like fire and shadow. "Please. You must trust me," the voice wavered, shifting into something stronger yet eerily calm. An unseen force tugged at Jessica, pulling her into the darkness. The shadows curled closer, their mesmerizing whispers now clearer, entwining with the plea from the girl. "You can't save us both. You have to choose," the figure urged, its tone shifting into a haunting echo that resonated deeply within Jessica's mind. "You must let me go." A wave of icy fear washed over her. The choice, a sacrifice she couldn't bear to make, played out in front of her. Memories flooded her mind of laughter, late-night talks, and secrets shared under starry skies. She blinked hard, pushing against the frantic thoughts. There had to be another way. I won't leave you. She shouted, willing her voice to shatter the underlying darkness. You have to. It screamed, breath hitching in desperation. The shadows around began to tremble, closing in with an urgency that sent a shudder through Jessica. Let go. You can save not just me, but everyone. Something terrible bubbled within her, the understanding that this was bigger than them. It wasn't just about saving one life but protecting everything she loved from the horrors lurking in Cedar Hollow. No. I won't choose. I can save both of us. She cried, her voice echoing like a challenge against the raging night. But as the darkness seeped closer, she felt the cold truth pulse through her. The girl's expression twisted, pain and hope warring within her gaze. Time twisted, seconds stretching into agonizing infinity as the weight of the decision threatened to crush Jessica under its enormity. Was she being tested? What if giving in to the darkness was the only way to truly end this nightmare? As shadows began to close in, dark tendrils snaking around her ankles, a terrible understanding washed over her. The girl's eyes glimmered with unshed tears, and Jessica knew she could either fight to hold on, or uncover a far darker truth that could seal their fates. Suddenly, the ground began to ripple as if the earth itself was awakening. A deep growl reverberated from the depths. She wasn't alone in confronting this horror. Just as she was about to make her choice, the figures in the trees stirred wildly, as if sensing the shift. What emerged next would shift everything she thought she knew. What awaited her further in the shadows? Destiny loomed, ready to unveil a truth buried deep within the forest of Cedar Hollow. The growl deepened, vibrating through Jessica's bones. It felt like a warning, an ominous declaration that whatever choice she made next could alter everything. The figure's eyes shone, pleading and bright, but they were also pulsing with a darkness that refracted fear right back at her. Jessica, please, it righted itself, voice sharper and more urgent. Don't let it consume you. You have to fight. Shadows danced around the figure like angry spirits, twisting in and out of view. It felt as if the darkness was alive, hungry. What do you mean? Fight how? She screamed back, despair coiling tightly in her chest. The ground beneath her quaked violently, as if expressing rage at her hesitation. A blinding flash erupted from the trees to her right, momentarily illuminating the haunting scene and revealing a grotesque creature at the edge of her vision, a mass of writhing darkness with glowing eyes that pierced through the night. Jessica's breath caught in her throat. This was the horror she had sensed, the malevolence swirling in the woods, waiting for a moment of weakness. The creature let out a high-pitched wail that sliced through the stillness. It echoed in her mind, encasing her thoughts in ice. Jessica. Focus. The figure urged, and suddenly Jessica saw the clarity in its frantic gaze. You have to remember who you are. You are more than this fear. She shook her head, memories flashing before her in rapid succession, her friend's laughter, the way they would sneak ice cream late at night, the warmth of shared secrets. I am not leaving you. But as if in response, the darkness began to close in, seeming to pulse with malevolence, snatching her resolve. It felt like the ground was trying to swallow her. Before she could react, the girl, her friend, stretched out her hand, desperately trying to break through the shadows enveloping them. You can't save us both, Jessica. Something shifted violently in the air, making her nauseous. I refuse to choose. Jessica shouted, her voice cracking against the encroaching shadows. Suddenly, a surge of energy surged beneath her feet, rippling like a thunderous roar, sending roots tumbling up from the soil and weaving through the surrounding trees. There was an undeniable connection to this land, a bond she never knew existed. The roots grasped at the dark tendrils, tugging on them with a desperate fury. With the shadows faltering, the twisted edges of the figure began to sharpen, and a flicker of determination sparked behind the girl's eyes. You're the light, Jessica. Don't let the dark seep in. With that realization, something deep within Jessica ignited a burning flame of courage ready to confront the doom that had settled upon them. She would not buckle, not then, not ever. Summoning every ounce of strength, she stepped forward, feeling the pulsing energy rise within her, pushing against the darkness. The shadows writhed as she screamed, "You want to take her. You want to have her." A shriek escaped the creature's throaty maw, one filled with rage, fear, and hunger. And just when Jessica was sure victory was within reach, the ground trembled again, tremors that reverberated through her soul. This felt different, darker. A deeper power was manifesting, clawing at the edges of her spirit. Something terrible was coming, something much worse than the creature's monstrous form. "Jessica!" The figure shouted, fear spilling into her voice. "We need to move. Now." Panic washed over her, but before she could act, wave after wave of encroaching shadows swept through the clearing, filling every inch of possibility. She had to face the reality of their situation, to trust herself completely. With adrenaline pounding in her veins, she thrust her hands toward the darkness, tapping into the force beneath her. Would she converge with the din of despair or become the light that pierced through the never-ending night? The ground quaked once more, and the shadows recoiled, but an even darker shape began to emerge from the depths, a figure draped in black, its eyes burning like molten coal. Jessica's heart raced. This was much more than she had expected. Much more than she could have ever anticipated. What monstrous truth lurked beneath the surface, ready to drown them all? As the thing crested the soil, revealing its true form, she felt a wave of certainty and fear wash over her. Nothing would remain the same again, and her resolve was about to be tested in ways she hadn't yet imagined. What if this was just the beginning of something far worse? The figure loomed larger, its shadow swallowing whole the remaining shards of light. Jessica's pulse raced, a frenzied drumbeat echoing in her ears as she faced this grotesque nightmare. Even the trees seemed to bend away, bowing in deference to the looming horror. "What are you?" she gasped, her voice almost lost in the cacophony of growls and whispers that filled the air around her. It stepped forward, slinking into the light and revealing features that twisted the very essence of reality. Its skin appeared fluid, like boiling tar, shifting and writhing under the cloak of night. Eyes, bright and fiery, locked onto Jessica, and she felt an unyielding pull, a temptation to surrender, to give in to the darkness. "No!" she screamed as her thoughts danced dangerously close to despair. The struggles of her past flickered like fireflies in her mind, the faces of family and friends, support that had been a lifeline when shadows threatened to consume her. The girl standing beside her extended her hand further, urgency painting every feature on her face. "You have to believe, Jessica. Remember their warmth, the love." Swallowing hard, she felt grounding tendrils of determination clawing back. She was more than what this dark creature wanted her to believe. With a flick of her wrist, she sent a cascade of brilliant light erupting from her fingertips, illuminating the grotesque figure with a radiant surge. It bellowed, a fury ripping from its throat that rained fear upon her. "You will regret that." The shadows recoiled, but Jessica knew it couldn't last. This was merely a blink of sunlight in an eternal night. Desperation surged in her heart as she forced herself forward, weaving through the dark energy. Each step felt like quicksand, more difficult, more draining, but she pressed on. "Jessica! Come on! You need to push it back." The figure, still cloaked in darkness, began to morph into shapes, creatures of despair that whispered secrets of her deepest fears, of failures that pierced her heart like glass. The memories wrapped themselves around her, a cacophony of what could have been, but then she saw it. A flicker of movement in the shadows. A familiar face. Jessica, the voice was soft yet jagged, like broken glass covered in honey. "No!" she shouted, forcing her eyes shut against the deception. "You're not real. Face it. You're alone now." The creature hissed, the girl's voice degrading into mournful wails that clawed at her sanity. "No. This isn't real. You can't take me," she cried, each word a desperate attempt to reclaim her resolve. She fought against the specter of doubt, summoning the laughter and light she once cherished. With a primal scream, Jessica unleashed the light roaring within her. It spread like wildfire, engulfing everything, unraveling the shadows and scattering them like ashes. The dark figure shrieked, the noise reverberating through the air as the shadows turned to vapor and drifted away. But then a violent quake erupted, and the earth split beneath them, a gaping maw threatening to swallow everything whole. The air grew thick with a noxious scent, as if the world itself began to die. No. The ground convulsed around them, cresting waves of darkness surging into the void. Jessica felt a rope of connection snapping in her core. We need to stay together. Run! The girl shouted, but the shadows were faster, snapping like lightning and lashing toward her friend. Jessica reached out, desperation enveloping her as she pulled with every ounce of strength. But the shadows curled tightly around the girl, pulling her away, dragging her back into the pit of despair. No! Jessica lunged forward, the world unraveling, shadows clawing at her, but she was slipping. Time was fracturing, and then, just as she felt the abyss opening beneath her, the girl's pleading eyes met hers, shimmering with unresolved terror. Jessica, find the light. A final scream burst from her lips, and everything went dark. When Jessica opened her eyes again, she was alone, hanging in that silence. The emptiness seemed to extend beyond infinity, and a cold shiver rippled down her spine. Had she lost her friend? The worth of their bond now felt like a distant memory. A haunting question loomed heavy in the air: what darkness awaited her next, and where had the creature taken her? Jessica blinked, the silence deafening and unyielding. She was surrounded by a landscape that felt both familiar and foreign, a void where shadows lingered, and her heart raced with the remnants of fear. Hello? She called, her voice faltering, swallowed by the thick darkness. An echo returned, whispers danced on the edge of her consciousness, but she couldn't quite grasp them. Heart pounding, she staggered forward, seeking to reclaim what had been lost, driven by memories of laughter and warmth that felt like a dream. Where are you? A flicker of light ignited in the distance, subtle yet undeniable. It pulsed rhythmically, a beacon amidst the surrounding darkness. Compelled by its warmth, Jessica moved toward it, each step a declaration against despair. But uncertainty shrouded her like a fog. What awaited her beyond the shadows? As she approached, the light widened into a clearing. She stopped cold, breath hitching in her throat. Before her stood the ancient stones, the circle of whispers. They were now adorned with flickering lights that shimmered with an ethereal glow. It felt inviting yet ominous, as if the stones were alive with history, vibrating with everything that had come before. Jessica, the air shimmered, and she could hear the soft, echoing voice of her friend. You can do this. No. I lost you. Tears blurred Jessica's vision. I can't do this without you. She felt anguish claw at her gut, threatening to open a chasm of loss so profound she could hardly breathe. Find the light within, the voice urged, stronger now, yet full of uncertainty. You are not alone. Remember what matters. The shadows around the stones began to pulse, dark tendrils reaching out like fingers, clamoring to creep back into her heart. Horrific images swirled in the air, moments of doubt, isolation, pain, all masked in shadows. With resolve, Jessica stepped forward again, stronger this time. You don't own me. She yelled, bolstered by her memories, refusing to let fear dictate her existence. She pressed her palms against the stones, feeling their energy seep into her. It was ancient, powerful, but it was also familiar, like the embrace of her family, the laughter of friends. As she closed her eyes, illuminating warmth surged through her. She envisioned the faces she loved, the joys they had shared, and with each heartbeat, light cascaded from her into the stones, igniting their energy. The shadows recoiled, hissing furiously. You cannot win. They seemed to scream. No. I will win. Jessica countered, enveloped in an incandescent glow, lighting up the clearing, illuminating the very corners of her mind that the darkness had once occupied. Each pulse of light seemed to break the very fabric of the shadows, fracturing their bond on her soul. Suddenly, from within the light, the girl emerged not twisted and racked with despair, but whole, radiant against the backdrop of darkness. You did it. Her eyes sparkled, full of life. Together. Together. Jessica echoed, their connection intertwining like roots buried deep within the earth. A surge of power erupted, and the shadows shrank back, dissolving into nothingness, defeated. But then, an ominous growl echoed once more, reverberating through the ground. The dark figure loomed again, more volatile, thrashing against the void as if in its death throes. It howled, and the very air trembled. Jessica. We have to trust each other now. The girl's voice was firm, igniting Jessica's spirit. Focus on the light, it's stronger than this. With renewed resolve, Jessica nodded. She steadied herself, taking the girl's hand, and both merged their energies into the stones. The bright light illuminated everything, no shadow could lie undetected now. The tendrils of darkness writhed, but with every pulse of their combined strength, they began to fade away, disintegrating into shimmering dust. The final battle surged around them, but together, Jessica and her friends summoned a blinding tidal wave of light. In one final, resounding cry, they unleashed their bond, sending the final remnants of despair swirling into oblivion. The clearing erupted in brightness, the light consuming everything until all that remained was a profound silence. Finally, the glow dimmed, and Jessica opened her eyes, breathing heavily but feeling free, her friend beside her, radiant and whole. We did it, the girl said, a soft smile gracing her lips. You found the light. Jessica glanced around. The circle of whispers was still there, alive but at peace. The shadows had retreated into the depths of the forest, defeated. We need to go home, Jessica said, turning toward the path that had formed, now glowing under the radiant moonlight. Yes, her friend agreed. But not back to Cedar Hollow. They began to walk, hand in hand, feeling the warmth of the light surrounding them as they stepped forward into newfound freedom. The weight of despair no longer clung to them, it had been vanquished by their unwavering bond, and as they walked, the spirits of Cedar Hollow faded into echoes of distant memories, forever grateful for the bravery that defeated the darkness. Remember, you need to subscribe now. Hit that red button immediately to keep up with all our exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep our community growing. Flood the comments with your thoughts, reactions, and any theories you have about this intense ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how this chilling tale unfolds. Your support means everything.